Hi again, everybody. I'm Kevin Nelson with the head coach of the Linfield Wildcats football team, Joseph Smith. And coach, your team falls to UMHB in the second round of the postseason, 24-0 in Belton. I know you already talked about this game in the media presser after the game, but kind of your thoughts now that you've had a chance to evaluate your team's performance there in Belton.
I don't think much has changed since that interview, but other than the fact that we just knew that the physical prowess of that football team was of the highest order, and certainly at a much greater level than anybody else that we've played all season, and I'm just really impressed with their program. They've done a really good job of playing clean games, not self-destructing, and really relying on their size and speed, and being very sound at what they do, and they're just a tremendous football program. And I thought we would, we did some good things, and we were close, but we just didn't do enough good things in a row to make the score closer.
Mm-hmm. You talked about a little bit how in the past UMHB had these flaws. Well, your team has kind of corrected those flaws for them. They prepare for you guys. They see you so often that now they're becoming almost unbeatable. They've won, 26, 27 games in a row.
Well, it seems like that,
Yeah.
and I know that, there's just a tremendous amount of respect between our program and theirs, and it goes both ways. They've really looked at getting past us as the only way that they were going to win a national championship, and so they studied us, and they did a good job defending us, and then attacking, how we play on defense, and they had a very good game plan, and more importantly, their kids are playing with discipline and with poise and discipline that quite frankly their teams of the past didn't play with, and as they've fixed that, they've become a very difficult out in the playoffs.
Let's go way back all the way to L.A. Week 1, clear back in September. Talk about that game against Chapman, led by Chidabem, who kind of bursts onto the scene as your running back. He scores a touchdown. Troy Fowler throws a couple more. Big interception late by Anthony Gudadardo, kind of put the game on ice there in L.A.
I thought that game was really fun for a variety of reasons. We got to go to the Dodger game. That was extra special, I thought, for our team, and then I thought Troy had a really good first game as a starting quarterback, and I really feel like he had a season that was going to be quite strong, and that's certainly a regret of mine, and sad that he just wasn't able to physically be able to finish the season, because he's such a quality young man, and I wanted him to be successful. He's put so much in the program, so. I was happy with how we played. It wasn't our best game in some ways, but you're right. I thought Troy came out, had a great first game, and as did Chidabom. I thought he was, we knew he'd be very good. It's just a matter of time getting back in terms of having patience and seeing the holes and working on ball security, all those things that are, take a while sometimes for a running back to develop.
The next week, you come home and you play in front of a almost record crowd against Hardin-Baylor, and an atmosphere that's really changed this season as opposed to in past years with the help of Streak Street, getting some new sponsors involved, and kind of talk about the atmosphere of what it was like playing at home this year in front of record attendance number in the Northwest Conference this season.
You mean a real attendance record?
Right,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, not an inflated one. I think we really liked that. I mean, I remember our Brett Elliott years, and where the crowds were just huge, and it was fun to have that back. I think that's something I think we'll see pretty much here to stay, as so many people at our school have worked hard to bring that a little bit of life into that experience, and I'm very appreciative of what you guys have done, and Kelly and Gary. It's been it's pretty neat, and our players like it. The fans really like it, and across the country, attendance at high school games and college games is down. People are staying home and watching on their phone, where they can watch 3 games. And I think that's cut into a lot of venues, and so being attractive for the whole experience is really a neat thing, and it's been great.
The next week, you get a bye. You come back fresh, take on Northwest Conference team of Whitworth in a game that was highly, highly anticipated. A lot of talk before that one, and those guys come in a highly ranked game. And kind of take me through that game. Your team dominated in week 4 of the regular season.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk on one side maybe for that game, and rightly so. I mean, this Whitworth had a very fine team and very veteran offense in particular, and I fully expected that game to be closer than it was. Ultimately, we were able to dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides, and that opened up everything on offense for us. And then, of course, on defense, our defense just was a wrecking machine that day and locked in on what they did and took away their strengths. And that was a good day for us. That was a good win.
Your team was really carried by its defense until Puget Sound. Kind of take me through that, what that was like, not having the offensive firepower that you had from a season ago that eventually kind of got back to that late in the season.
Yeah, I would say we played Willamette maybe after
Mm-hmm.
Whitworth, and I felt like our offense was really getting ready to explode and click. We were just sort of finding our groove, and then we had some changes, at quarterback, and our offensive line got dinged up really about the same time. So
Yeah.
we took a couple steps back literally, and then we became I've used the metaphor of the Baltimore Ravens, from their Super Bowl years, and we became that style of team. Suddenly, I was interested in time of possession. Never have been in a long time, but we started to win every time of possession and shorten the game and give our defense breaks in between punts and let them do their thing. And it's a good recipe. It got us through a couple of victories where our defense was able to stranglehold, a couple good teams, and then we finally were able to sort of get our identity back on offense, and we established a quarterback and got the throwing game really back in sync, and our offensive line started to get healthy and more efficient as they could move.
Right.
It's hard to play well when you can't move. So as those guys were able to gel once again and get their feet underneath them literally, we started to become a dangerous team again.
So you get past Willamette, Lewis and Clark fairly easily. Then you face George Fox, and you talk about the smack talk from one side on that one. Highly anticipated game in the Northwest Conference. They jump into the top 25, and the conditions were just horrible. Your team gets a victory, 12-6, 4 field goals from Willie Warren, who was outstanding this season. He sets a team single-season record for field goals made with 18, and that one he was nails. And your defense gives up 6 points at the end, but really it was a dominant victory from your team that played the wind, the weather, the conditions, everything practically perfect throughout the afternoon.
From almost a clinic standpoint, I just was really pleased with how we played that game. And the game honestly was won or put away with maybe a 6-minute drive into the wind where we pretty much not just survived when we didn't have the wind, we moved the ball into it and took their time away and then scored on that drive as soon as the field flipped, and that pretty much iced it at that point, the way our defense was playing. That one drive was a real testament, I thought, to our guys just wanting it and getting down and doing it the hard way and banging out 2, 3, 4-yard carries and moving the chains. And so I thought that was a great program win. It really was a 12-0 game. The last touchdown's a joke. So I thought that was a great game for us.
PLU's the next week, and that was a nail-biter. Went to overtime, actually, 16-10. Chitta gets the final touchdown on the last play of the game, and your defense shut out the Lutes in the second half. No points scored in the second half or overtime for that club. That kind of a weird game, a missed field goal at the end, but roughing the kicker gave you another chance on the very next play. Chitta punches it in.
The Lutes, I felt, were very, very dangerous team this year, and you look at their scores and their losses were all, just by a few points here and there, and the way they play and the tradition they have against us, that is our rival. Lots of people get in line and want to say they're our rival, but PLU is still our rival, and I've got a lot of respect for how they play. Times are changing, of course. They have a coaching change, so I think that'll be very interesting to see, who gets that job. But they have so many wonderful coaches in that program. It has to be a Lute. I just can't see them going outside of that, and they don't need to. They have hundreds literally of ex-Lutes that are in the coaching profession they're more than qualified, and I expect them to come right back. I mean, I really think they'll come right back to the top of the conference, and and so I love playing them, and they brought it that day and gave us everything we could handle, and it was a really fun win. I mean, those are pretty exciting. We haven't had a lot of those because we've gotten so accustomed to being able to win by 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Right.
Oftentimes, the joy of winning a close game we don't often get to experience, and so that was pretty special. I really enjoyed that.
The next couple weeks, Puget Sound and Pacific, Wyatt takes over as your starting quarterback, and the offense takes off. Kind of take me through that. Your defense kind of feels relieved. They kind of get a rest and a good break after a really tough game at PLU, and Wyatt takes over the starting job at quarterback.
Yeah, I felt that was really a pivotal turn for us. The decision to play him in that second half of PLU was not easy, and but we decided to go that route, and just were able to complete some passes, and that really opened up the running game, greatly for us. The UPS pretty much seemingly blitzed us, pretty much every play it felt like, and really trying to take away the run and forcing us to pass. And I felt like we probably could have thrown for, honestly, 400, 500 yards that day if I would have allowed our team to do that. But once we got a lead, we sort of quit passing kind of early third quarter. So that was a good day for us. Our pass protection got a lot better in the second half. First half was a little bit rocky, but that was a good win. I agree. Our offense sort of found an identity, and then as we got ready to roll into that Pacific game, we were a much more complete team.
So Puget Sound Pacific, you end that regular season as Northwest Conference champions, 9th time in a row for that. Crazy honor in that way. A ton of guys get Northwest Conference honors and Player of the Year. You, the Coach of the Year again. And you get Hardin-Simmons, the number 5 team in the nation, comes to McMinnville. And we'll talk about the bracket here in a little bit, or we've talked about it enough. But Hardin-Simmons comes to town. Your team kind of peaks at the perfect time. Played, in my opinion, your most complete game on offense and defense. 27-13 was the final score, but it felt like a whole lot more than that.
I would agree. I think that really started in that Pacific game. One of the more dominant wins we've had against a good, solid football team. Pacific at the end of the year was dangerous. I think they were 5-1 or something like that over their last 6 games, and yet we were in firm control of that game from the get-go, and I think that carried over right into the playoffs. Hardin-Simmons was maybe a more physical, faster, bigger version of Pacific, but in many ways very similar style of play on both sides, and that was a good matchup for us. We certainly, I thought, exploded on Hardin-Simmons, and again, probably could have ran the score up if we were, inclined to do so. I felt like our offense had its most complete day of the season against a very, very, very talented football team, and so I was very, very pleased with that game. That might be one of the better playoff wins we've had, and that's saying a lot. Over the last 18 years, we've had a very, very many, but maybe the Rowan game probably would jump right out there as maybe the finest playoff game we've played, but or just how overrated the East teams are. Maybe that's what that would say. But we ran the ball exceptionally well in the playoffs against a great football team, and that's hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really hard to run the ball against top 10 teams, and we did that very efficiently.
Your defense is going to finish out the season as a top 10 unit, regardless of what happens in the rest of the postseason. You lose 10 of 11 of those starters, all those guys seniors. Duke Mackel, the only one coming back. You got a lot of depth at every position, it seems like. The defensive line played well. You got some young linebackers coming up. Some younger guys in the secondary even played in the playoffs a lot. Talk about how they could evolve in the offseason into next season in 2018.
Well, certainly the loss of our front seven is it gives us cause for concern and certainly
Sure.
cause for pause. But we knew that last year, and I think we prepared for that last year well, and we have, this year. So the recruiting from last year's class, I think, will fill the void nicely. Our young linebacking core is extremely talented. We took, I want to say, 4 or 5 freshman linebackers down to Texas. That's a lot on a playoff team, and they're all going to be contributors next year, if not starters, and very talented. So I'm really, really happy about that. And I think we had 10 freshmen, in that 58-man roster, and that's a large number, and and they're all good. So the future's bright. I look for us to reload just fine on defense. We've got a tremendous staff. I think we've got the best D coordinator in the country, and our staff's excited about that. And it's gonna be a fun year next year.
Offensively, kind of the opposite. Everybody coming back. An inexperienced group this year that everybody was worried about found their stride at the end of the season. Potentially found your quarterback. You've got a running back. Wide receivers all look good. Talk about them, how they could get even better than what they were at the end of this season.
Well, certainly the skill positions will be. They're literally all back. So we lose Akamis, who I thought's been a very strong third down receiver for us over the years, but the core of our receiving core is all back. The running backs, the quarterback, and tight ends. And we lose a couple linemen, and certainly Ryan and will be missed greatly. But Coach Iyer, again, I think is a master O-line coach, and we'll develop that line nicely. And so I think our offense has a chance to be dangerous and back to the sort of the levels that we've grown to enjoy here, and be balanced run and pass. I expect us to be able to run the football and throw it.
Coach, thanks for the time all season long. 62 consecutive winning seasons. 9th time as a coach of the year, conference champs. You go to the playoffs, you win a home playoff game against a top 5 team. A lot to be proud of this season. Another impressive season, and always a great season to be a Wildcat. Thanks for the time this year, Coach.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think our program, kids come because they want to measure themselves against the best in the country, and as long as we improve each week and every day, all through the off season, then next year we'll once again stand before the best and be measured.
Yep. We'll see you next season, Coach. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.